Uh, Again, we have Norristown, the home team, on the left, and So, again, we have our home team, Norristown, on the left, and the visiting team on the right. And here, well, not here we go, not yet. We're sort of just, still, catching up. I don't actually remember who we're playing this time around, and I'm very sorry to the team for it. It will probably be put in the description below this video. So just letting you guys know that that's the thing. So, first board, Norristown is white, visiting team is black. Haven't yet started, everybody's still sort of getting themselves together.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I thought it was because of that soul.
So then Norristown starts off with, it looks like a simple king's pawn opening. Going into what looks like the Italian game. At the opening stages, there's really not much for commentators to do other than identify which openings used and the general strategy behind it. The Italian is fairly standard. It's one of the easiest openings for beginners to learn. Oh, looks like Black brought out his other knight. Here's the question, though. Will Norristown respond with... Will White punish him with the fried liver, is the question. Doesn't look like it. Instead, he brings out his other knight. Looks like he's going to sort of build a little temple. Well, of course, I could be completely wrong and just, talking to fill the silence, but oh well. Black brings out his bishop. And white castles. And white castles. Alright, pushing the pawn, going for development, almost letting the bishop out. There's kind of a knight in the way. But aside from that, yep, letting the bishop out. Never mind, that's the queen I'm thinking of. Yep, letting the bishop out. Potentially. eventually, of course. Until, of course, white pushes the H pawn, eliminating the opportunity for black's light bishop to move to G4. So then, now that it looks like black's plan to bring out his light bishop has kind of failed, what will black do next? Alright, it looks like black has castled. Alright. Choosing to, instead of push development, tuck his king away safely behind a wall of pawns and rook. Alrighty then. And it looks like white has pushed his A pawn. Now then, what will black do? Bringing out his bishop and attacking white's light bishop. Okay. White takes, and I assume black will recapture. Yep. Recapture he does. I'm not entirely sure that was wise, given that now, given that generally you don't want to push or remove the F pawn if you castle kingside. Just because that leaves that diagonal that your king is on wide open. Also, now black has doubled up pawns on the e-file, which again is generally something you want to avoid, particularly early on. So, in any case, white brought out his d-pawn to provide support for his e-pawn, as well as to allow his dark squared bishop to come out and play for a little bit. Well, the potential for him to come out. And just like white did a few turns ago with his h-pawn, preventing black's light squared bishop from shooting all the way out to the g-file, black also pushes their h-pawn, preventing white from bringing his dark squared bishop out all the way. So then the question becomes, will white... Okay. Bring his knight out to the a-file. Bringing the knight out to the a-file. That puts pressure on black's dark squared bishop, meaning that potentially it has to be moved. Alrighty then. So, it looks as though black has made a decision on what move they're going to make in retaliation. They're just going to go through a period of review before they actually decide to commit. So, black can either move that bishop or defend it, and it's already defended. This move by white appears to be a shameless attack on and see, black just changed his mind, which is why you always write down your moves before you actually move it. Okay. Okay. Moving his bishop back doesn't eliminate the danger, as you can see, because, white just took the bishop. However, it does mean that white's knight no longer can affect the center. And it also means that black's central pawns are relatively unscathed. They're still in that nice position they have there. And so there's that. However, again, black now has doubled up pawns, this time on the B file, leaving the C file semi-open. But again, generally, you don't want doubled up pawns. So then, now that black is without both his bishops, and white is without a bishop and a knight, what will white do? Will he continue to develop? The queen, huh? White's dark squared bishop can almost come out unopposed. Why didn't he just bring out his dark bishop? Unless he wants to try and line up queen and rook just right off the bat. And there's the knight attacking the queen. Not sure how much damage that'll actually do, because white can just trade knights and it would still be fine. Yep, there it goes. Recaptures with the pawn. Alright, so then, now that the doubled up pawns has switched from the E file to the D file, what will black do? Alrighty then, he brought out his other pawn. This match is full of surprises. First, black completely diverts the F pawn away from the file. Then, white pushes the F pawn. Again, that's generally something you don't want to do, especially in a castled position. Alright. Let me see, what did black do? Hmm. If I were to make a prediction, I would say that white is going to push the e pawn to e5. And he can afford to do that because there are two defenders for that potential move. But let's see. Nope. Instead, moving the queen over to the f file, lining up queen and rook. While also providing support to the f pawn. So then, looks like black is taking his time to think through his next move. This game seems to be taking a few liberties with the traditional accepted mode of play. Again, there's the multiple doubled up pawns, as well as the unconventional push of the f pawns after castling. It looks like Black has made a decision on their move. Again, the period of review and rest to ensure that they're not about to make a serious, terrible mistake. And there they go, they're pushing the pawn. Righty then. And White responds in kind. Pairing up the pawns like this severely limits what particularly the bishops can do. But it looks like that's not going to be really an issue, given that there's only one bishop on the board. Like, of course, it's still kind of just like hanging out there. And it would be frustrating and annoying to attempt to bring it out at this point, given that every square except 2 that the bishop can potentially move to is guarded by one of Black's pieces. Alright, Black moves his rook over to the semi-open C file. For those of you watching who don't know, a semi-open file is a file that has one pawn missing. Currently, the semi-open files right now are the C and F files, because there is no pawn on either of those. A completely open file is a file that has no pawn on it, black or white. So then, now that black is beginning to make his intentions clear, how will white respond? So then, as of now, again, the bishops can't do much, and quite honestly, knights would be better. Simply because of the closed nature of the game, or the semi-closed nature of the game. Moving his queen back to the E file rather. Now, the knight's mobility in closed games is really what sets them apart. They can jump over and around and through pieces. For all intents and purposes, through pieces. Which means that a knight isn't as hampered in a closed game as a bishop would be. However, that doesn't mean that a bishop is completely useless. Bishop's really only useless when it's blocked by one of their own pieces. Which white's surviving bishop is. Black, however, does not have that problem because black doesn't have any bishops. Alright, he brings up his other pawn. Now see, that's the pretty great thing about chess. Even a seemingly disadvantageous position like doubled pawns can be turned advantageous by using the second pawn on the D file. He is blocking Black is blocking white's D pawn from moving up, and the second D pawn is attacking white's E pawn. So, how will white respond? The pawn, let me see. The white pawn in question currently has 2 defenders and 2 attackers. So, if white really wanted to, he could choose to do nothing. So then, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Norristown's first board is pretty damn good at doing the unexpected. But it looks like this time, so is his opponent. So the question here for white is, how do you beat somebody at your own game? This is going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to commentate too, honestly. You know, as long as they don't take forever to take moves. But still, it'll be pretty fun then too. I get to speculate about what's going on in their head. There he goes. Alright. Bringing forth the B pawn, moving it to B4. So he's opted to leave that, he's opted to leave that alone, trusting instead to the trade. And there we go. Here's the question now, will black recapture with the knight, or will black push his D pawn to D3? Decisions. Well, if he recaptures with the knight, white will simply recapture with the queen, leaving him in a pretty bad position, all things considered. Because not only will that leave white with a hold on the center, and almost completely unchallenged hold on the middle, he would have the queen in the center of the board. You don't want your opponent to have the queen in the center of the board. So black opted to move his queen out instead. Oh, I see. Black here is attacking white's queen with his queen. And yeah, that's a thing. Attacking the queen, defended by the knight. White goes in for the trade. Now all we have to do is, wait for black to come back. Now then. Since it's sort of a foregone conclusion that black will recapture with the knight, Yep, there he goes. How will white react? And how will black react to white's reaction? Chess is very call and response oriented. If I do this, you do that. If I do this, you do that. At least the a traditional a chess match with traditional strategy is very call and response oriented, so it can start to feel rote. And here comes white again. But as we have established, this match is not traditional. Alrighty then. Looks like white is attempting to bring out his rook. No, that's not what he's doing. He's defending the pawn from black's rook. Mm-hmm. Yes. Again, the C file is a semi-open file, which means that since black's rook is on the C file, that means that he has a straight shot down to take white's C pawn, which up until white made his move with the rook had no defenders. Taking that pawn, if black had taken that pawn, that would have led to a somewhat nasty situation for white, where his bishop was on the run, and it would also lead to potentially black taking the G pawn and leaving white's king with little to no defense whatsoever. Now then, how will black respond? Black has his knight, and he has 2 rooks, as well as it looks like 5, 6, 7 pawns. Yes, 7 pawns. He most certainly does have options. It looks as though the accelerated pace and the flurry of trading early on in the game has led to, looks like, an early endgame. I almost hesitate to call it that, but all the other pieces have been not slowly, but picked off the board, leaving a majority of pawns. And obviously kings. So okay. Black still moved that C rook, but instead of moving it all the way down and taking C2, just moved it to C4 instead, threatening... no. Providing another defender for the pawn, as well as it looks like he's going to try and move that up, maybe? Gonna try and move that up, probably, in an attempt to either take the C pawn or deflect it away so he can run down and take the bishop. Probably not, though. They're even, and it wouldn't really give Black an increase in position. So it would be trading down for essentially no reason at all. In short, I don't know what he's planning, but it looks like it's going to be fun. So then how will White respond? He's got a direct attack on his pawn that he very neatly defended against. And then it also looks like he's got an implied attack. So what will he do? Well, White has options as well. White's got a bishop, 2 rooks, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns as well. And obviously, he has his king. Alright, started moving his king up, further reinforcing the idea that this is sort of an early endgame. Now again, I could be completely wrong. Probably am wrong, actually, but it's fine. As we approach the halfway point, just want to point out that it looks like the fifth board match all the way in the back, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Well, that's where it was. Looks like that's finished. Meanwhile, boards 1 through 4 are still going strong. How will this play out? All right. Black has just lined up his rooks. Oh dear, white might be in trouble. The only thing standing between white's bishop and black's everything else is the c-pawn. So, if black doubles up his rooks trying to take that single pawn out, how could white respond any other way than to double up his rooks to defend said pawn? Of course, I say that now, but it's easy to be smart in hindsight. There goes the pawn, attacking. No. Yep. Attacking that pawn. White definitely seems to be in a little bit of trouble here. Given that black, it seems, is no longer even worried about the middle because he's controlling just about everything else. As we approach the 1 hour point, I would just like to remind everybody watching that this is brought to you by NASD TV, the official channel of Norristown Area School District. I'd also like to give a shout out to all the amazing people here in the comm center of the high school at Norristown. They do good work. They come out to record anything and everything that has to do with Norristown achievements, Norristown extracurricular activities. They record all the school concerts, the plays, the sports matches, including chess, because chess is a sport. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The brain is a muscle and chess is a sport. All right then. Okay. Bringing his rook over to the D file. Once black's pawn takes white's pawn, if that happens. White's the D file will be a completely open file. Again, meaning that there is no pawn on it whatsoever. And so he instead takes with the rook. Yep, white recaptures with the A rook, recaptures with the other rook. Now then, will white take the rook or the pawn? There's no question about it. He's taking the rook. And there we go. Alright, pushing the pawn, trying to put pressure on that knight. The knight, by the way, escaped to f4. And it looks like white has given up. Looks like 3 chess matches wrapped up at the same time. At least 2. Because, yep, third board finished, as did first board. So it looks like there's only fourth and second boards left. Second board, of course, being the board closest to the camera.
Do you want to run upstairs and ask him if he wants to take pictures of players, of these 2 first players, or all 5? Huh? What do you mean? No. He said to take pictures of the little people thing. Do you have his number? Yeah. Can you call him and ask him? If he wants to see he wants to see the picture of the first 2 aces or all of them.
Alrighty then, so let's focus on the second board match, shall we? In this one, it looks like Norristown is black and the visiting team is white. It's hard to see that match from the way this camera's set up, but it also looks like fourth board has finished. Alright, good. Now that we've zoomed in a little bit more, you can sort of start to see where black is and what black is trying to do. Alright, so looks like white is attempting to put pressure on black's knight, given that the knight in question is Looks like the only thing standing between white and an open file. Yep. Seems like a legit move. However, black doesn't seem too worried given that that knight is protected by a pawn. And there's also a queen there. Looks like, is that a bishop? It's hard to see from here. Look at the time. Black has about 40 minutes left on his clock. White has less than 15. Black might just win on time for this. White moves his knight up to right next to black's. Let me see. Looks like that is a discovered attack. White's bishop is now attacking the pawn that is defending black's knight. So then what will black do? Okay, good. Now we have a little bit of a better view. All right. So it looks as though black's knight is being attacked by white's rook and queen. And it is being defended by a pawn. The good thing, though, is that black, having so much more time on his clock than white, he can afford to take his time and think out his next move. White, not so much. Alright. black goes back and black doubles back and takes white's pawn. The pawn that was formerly defended by white's knight. So the moral of that story is you take advantage of anything and everything your opponent does. Especially if it looks like it's not going to be the best for you. I mean, like, if your opponent does something and, like, it's, it looks like it's put you in a bad position, you find some way to turn it around. Good, good. Well done, black. Again, white is taking his time to think, but he doesn't have the time to take to think. He has to make a decision, and he has to make it fast. Otherwise, he will lose on time. So, white's rook is now on an open file, a completely open file, looks like. Yeah, completely open. However, he doesn't want to try for a back rank checkmate yet, because the rooks aren't lined up. And if he just shoots all the way down right now, black will just take his rook. So, white does that. Lines up queen and rook to try and shoot down for a back rank checkmate. There's a fairly simple fix for that, though. All black has to do... Was I saying black or white just now? Alright. White's going for it looks like white's going for a back rank checkmate. It's a simple fix, though. All black has to do is provide himself a flight square. Generally, that involves pushing either, in this case, the G or the H pawn. It only has to be one square. Pushing either one of those up so that he can have a place to go when the back rank is no longer safe. You know, the whole fight or flight response thing. He can't fight, so he must resort to flight. And again, black has the time to take when he's thinking about his next move. White does not. So, a term that hasn't really come up in the, I don't believe it's really come up in the last few chess matches recorded, is something called an en passant, French for in passing. Basically it means that you have one pawn that moves 2 spaces forward as its first move, and it ends up right next to a pawn from the opponent's. Basically, the opponent's pawn can slide into the space directly behind the one that just moved and capture the piece. It can only be used on the next turn. And yeah, that's basically it. It's generally not used much because it involves getting a pawn over to your opponent's side of the board, and then your opponent, of course, has to actually push their pawn 2 spaces forward as their first move. Not as the first move of the game, but as the pawn's first move. Alright. Moving his rook all the way over. Looks like attacking the queen. Rook is defended, I believe, by the knight. Not the knight. It looks like there's a bishop there. It's a little hard to see, I know, but it looks like there's a bishop at d7. Alright, queen is now no longer lined up with that rook. Now it's just attacking black's knight. Alright. Move the knight to attack the queen again. Move the queen to attack the knight again. Good boy. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, black just forked white's queen and rook. And now, white is in a bit of a pickle. White's queen is currently under attack by both black's rook and black's knight. Alright, white has made his decision. Looks like he's giving up a rook. Retakes with his other rook. Alrighty then, black. How will you respond? What will you do? What to do, what to do. Looks like he's pushing the pawn, looking to attack white's knight that has been sort of sitting pretty there. Sorry, doubly attack white's knight. I forgot about the queen for a second. There goes his other bishop. The only thing about white moving his knight to where he did is now his bishop is completely blocked in. He can't move it like at all. Bringing the queen back up. Attacking both rook and queen. Okay. Alright. Taking the rook, and simultaneously having done that, black is now attacking white's knight. Recaptured with the queen. Black still has 2 rooks, a queen, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. Meanwhile, white has a rook, a bishop, not a rook, a bishop, a knight, a bishop, 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns, and a queen. And of course, both players still have their kings. Looks like white has realized that his f-pawn is sort of loose. Not loose. No, that's the wrong word. He's noticed that his f-pawn is a little bit under attack. So he decided to defend it with his queen. Let me see. Alright, and black has now lined up his rooks. Nice and neat. Let me see, that's... Still not going to be enough. Black needs to get his pawns in the game too. Or he needs to choose a different attack. A different avenue for attack, rather. Because as of now, White has too many defenders around that single area for Black to really be able to functionally get in a threat of checkmate. Now, White knows that as well. However, his hands are slightly tied. He has to make a move. You can't just say, "Oh no, I like my position the way it is. I'll pass on my turn for now." You can't do that in chess. Alright, he moved his king over. Now Black is going to see what he can do to force the situation to change. Like doing that. That's a good example. He can do that. Of course, yep. White could always recapture with the queen, and ultimately nothing would really change. Or would it? Yeah, no, nothing really changed. Black still needs to get more of his pawns in there. Alright. What'd he do? Looks like he pushed a pawn. That's why. Attacking the queen while also Black is attacking White's queen with his rook, as well as while staying defended by his own queen. Alright. Good. Now, White has to move his queen a little bit, or he'll lose it. And at this stage, when they're dancing around each other on tiptoes, can't lose a queen. You absolutely can't, but at the same time, you don't want to send it too far away from where all the action is. So the question is, by moving his queen back to C2, did he do just that? Oh no, that's what he did. He didn't push the pawn earlier. No, he moved the queen up. Okay. And that's why. Alright. And now it's tempting. It's very, very tempting to go right for the check. But there's a knight there. And knights are really cool, because they can jump over pieces. And they have a weird attack pattern. And you can't block them, because they jump over pieces. Knights are great. Knights are my favorite chess piece. Specifically for that reason. And if you use a knight right, it's potentially more valuable than a bishop. Of course, you use any piece right, it's more valuable than anything else. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You use a pawn right, it's your most dangerous weapon. Regardless, what black just did, lined up his rooks again. Defending the one on the 7th rank, rather, with something more than just a king. Moves his king back to the corner as white's pawns are beginning to make their march down towards the opposite end of the board. To the opposite end of the board and promotion. It looks like black is also going to be starting to get his king and pawns in position for that same march. So, white is in a bad position here. What will he do? He's got the lined up rooks. He's got the queen right in front, like almost literally right in front of his king. What will he do? Looks like he resigned. That's it. That's the match. I believe we should be seeing the scoreboard soon. Or not. Score for this match. I believe it can be found online at the LBC SCL chess site.